So we're in chapter 1 of your American history book, and we got to the point in chapter 1 of Spain's crusade in America. We found that Christopher Columbus came to America in view of Spain, supporting Spain, even though he was Italian, and claimed America for Spain. And through all of this, Spain became a crusade in America and became the mightiest country in Europe. And you can see there that map there of all that Spain controlled at that time. Conquistadors. So what are conquistadors? Well, conquistador means conquerors. And so they wanted fame and fortune, and they brought the armies with them, their own armies with them, to conquer the native peoples in America. And they also wanted to convert all the natives to Roman Catholic religion. But that wasn't their main concern. What was their main concern? Gold. Gold, God, and glory, right? So that was the conquistadors, to conquer the people there. They either baptized them into the Roman Church or they killed them. Not a good way to evangelize, huh? The first conquistador we're going to talk about is Juan Ponce de Leon. In 1513, he conquered and was the governor of Puerto Rico. But he also was searching because he heard these tales of a fountain of youth that the Indians told. And he thought, I would love to find this fountain of youth. And so their stories showed that it was north, so he explored Florida mainland. So Ponce de Leon was the first to come to the Florida mainland. Remember the rest, they were in Hispaniola when they were basically in the area of Cuba and the islands and Puerto Rico, but now they had come to the mainland, coming to Florida. So Ponce de Leon, he was the first, 1513, to come to the mainland, Florida. Then we have Vasco de Balboa, and he too in 1513. Balboa took the route to cross over through the Isthmus of Panama. So he came to Panama, went land over the Isthmus of Panama here, that small little isthmus, and he found a new ocean. He discovered the Pacific Ocean was there, knowing that now there might be a new way to the Orient. If we could get through this Panama, the Panama Canal wasn't there, but to get overland to Panama and then cross over to the Pacific Ocean and to be able to sail easily to the Orient. And yes, that's happening now with the Panama Canal. But Balboa discovered the Pacific Ocean on the other side, the Atlantic Ocean on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other side. So here we have a picture of Vasco de Balboa. And there they even have a commemorating coin there for him, and see with the native people. He brought the natives with him. So he used the native slaves in doing this. So let's go on. The next we have in 1519, we have Ferdinand Magellan. You have to know Magellan because he was the first one to sail around the entire world. He sailed from Portugal. So, but he was employed by Spain. So actually he was a Portuguese sailor employed by Spain. So Magellan, of course, the Spanish, they're controlling the world, as you remember. And so even though the Portuguese were the map makers and the sailors and the explorers, they had to have finances. So they got their finances from Spain and sailed for Spain. So Ferdinand Magellan, he took a 3-year voyage around the entire world. You can see on that map there, let me move this over so you can see a little better there. You can see on the map there, he went around the whole world. He had 5 ships with hundreds of men, and they sailed from the west to the Atlantic. So around the Atlantic, so they basically sailed west from the Atlantic Ocean. So they started here, as you can see, sailing around South America, sailing on here, sailing over here, and sailing around Africa and coming back, sailing around the whole world. The Strait of Magellan was named for him. He sailed around South America. As he got below here in South America is the Strait of Magellan, and they named that for him. And so he went down the very, very tip of South America. And he was also killed in the Philippines. What? So he really didn't make it, did he? No, but his sailors did. He was killed in the Philippines, and there was only one ship left. Remember, 5 ships started, and now there was only one ship left. And that ship only had 18 survivors when they had hundreds of men. So on this round-the-world trip, hundreds of men died, and they only returned with one ship. But Magellan's ship did make it around the whole world. Basically saying the world is round. Now we have Cortez. He's a real conquistador, isn't he? Hernando Cortez in 1519. He too, sailing for Spain, he went to explore and conquer the conquest of Mexico and South America. In 1521, he conquered the Aztecs Indians of Mexico. And of course, they had a chief there, Chief Montezuma, and of the city, Tenochtitlan city on this island. And the island was on, right where Mexico City is, on a shallow lake, but it was magnificent. I don't have a picture of it here, but it was a magnificent. The Aztec Indians were very advanced, but now would be in Mexico City. You can go and see the ruins there. So they had a great pyramid there, Montezuma's pyramid there to the sun god. And the sad thing was that they did human sacrifices there, basically 20,000 people at a time. So Cortez, he was shocked by this. He was shocked by the human sacrifices all, but he was more interested in gold and silver than anything else. So even though that shocked him, his heart was, he wanted gold and silver. So Cortez conquered and claimed their wealth for Spain. You see there it says Hernando Cortez was born in 1485 in Medellin, Spain. He was a distant cousin of Francisco Pizarro, which we're going to find out more about him. He was very mischievous child and always wanted to explore, of course. He later sailed to Cuba and became very passionate about voyaging to the New World, and he brought armies along with him. It says in the bottom here, I and my companions suffer from a disease of the heart which can be cured only with gold. Yeah, right. But anyway, that's Cortez. Cortez conquered the huge, I would say, nation of the Aztecs. There are so many. That whole tribe was not just a tribe; it was a nation, and Cortez conquered them because Hernando Cortez had guns, and they didn't. Then, of course, his cousin, Francisco Pizarro, in 1533, he conquered the Incas of Peru. Peru is in South America, as you can see there. Here's up here towards Mexico, and down here is South America. So him going down into South America, he saw these Incas. They were very advanced, too, and they had excellent roads and architecture through there. They had suspension bridges over the mountain gorges. They cut stones that perfectly fit together without mortar. But Pizarro conquered them for their wealth, because he enslaved the natives then to work in the mines of gold and silver. They had gold and silver, and he knew. So he conquered the Inca, the great nation of the Inca nation, for Spain. Pizarro was born in Trujillo, Spain in 1474. In 1502, he traveled to Hispaniola, modern-day Dominican Republic, and Haiti, and later joined an expedition to Panama in 1519. And now we see where he came through and conquered the ancient Inca Indians, and conquered their nation. So, Pizarro. Now we have Cabeza de Vaca. So in 1528 to 36, he searched for the 7 cities of Ciola, which basically we call the 7 cities of gold. He was searching for gold. And when he was doing his searching, what did he discover? He discovered Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona in the United States. Another conquistador. Another conquistador, Francisco Coronado, in 1590. So Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, he became the governor of Nueva Galicia, and he searched for the 7 cities of gold too. He set out on his expedition on February 23rd, 1540. So he's searching for the city of gold. He brought along an army with 300 men and all these captive natives with him, all of his native captives that were slaves with him. And he discovered the Southwest United States. As he went in, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. He too, searching for those 7 cities of gold by looking at the old, I should say, wise tales or the old myths of the Indians, looking for more gold. And he just happened to discover the Grand Canyon. You think of Coronado, you think of Colorado, don't you? So it's actually not Colorado. It's below where he traveled, though. Francisco Coronado, another conquistador. Another conquistador, Hernando de Soto, in 1540. And where did he explore? Do you see here? He explored quite a bit there, didn't he? He explored the Southwest United States, including Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Tennessee. In 1541, he discovered the Mississippi River. So, claiming this all again for Spain, we have De Soto. Juan Cabrillo, or Cabrillo, I would say his name, how you spell it, in 1542 now. He was another Portuguese explorer that was employed by Spain. He was sailing for Spain. He explored what? The coast of California. See where he's going up the coast of the west coast of California. Juan Cabrillo. So he was a Spanish explorer, traveled north from Mexico trying to find that route to Asia. In 1542, he explored what is now San Diego, Cape San Martin, San Miguel Island, and many people traveled with him, such as sailors, soldiers, and enslaved Africans. He even had Africans with him. So I found about Cabrillo is that when he came to California, he even had children with some of the natives there. So he was, so he had like many wives and stuff. You know, he was not the most moral of guys. Let's just say that. But he did happen onto California's coast, one of the first Spanish claiming California for Spain. Estevanico. Well, Estevanico, why he's famous is because he was African. And so he was an African that explored with some of these conquistadors. And then he went on exploring himself. So, because many African slaves accompanied, especially Cabrillo, right? So he explored Florida, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Mexico. And a lot of times, people don't know much about him, you know. So it's like, oh, he was an African. He was not a Puerto Rican. He was not a Spaniard, but he was an African that explored the New World. The Spanish legacy in America. There were many settlements during this time now. As these conquistadors came, they brought in these Spanish priests as you'd say, as they would come in and they would settle in some of these lands. So they had settlements in Florida, and they had settlements in Texas. The Spanish had settlements in New Mexico, Arizona, and California. In 1565, you have to know this, in 1565, the first settlement in America? No, it wasn't Jamestown, and it wasn't the Pilgrims, but it was in 1565. It was Spanish. It was in Saint Augustine, Florida, and it was founded by Pedro Menendez, and it's the oldest city, oldest town, I should say, or settlement in America by the Spanish. And it was the first permanent settlement with a presidio. A presidio is a fort, just a Spanish name for a fort. So, Spanish legacy in America. Here, let me put this here so you can see it better. So, and of course, there were many Catholic missions, especially up all the coast of California, as the Catholics came. And basically, they came and forced a lot of the Indians. A lot of times, either had to become Catholic or they were killed. So, but again, there were a lot of these priests that came with very good intentions. So I should not say that was the norm. So, and as the haciendas and comadillas, which were the haciendas, these were the large estates that were granted to the Spanish colonists by the King of Spain. And these later on were turned into ranches and plantations. So what happened? The King of Spain, he claimed this land, so this land was his. He thought, even though the Indians were on this land, he claimed the land, and then he said he'd give them to certain people, especially explorers and such, but he'd give these ranches to certain people from Spain so they could go and settle there. And these big ranches were later turned into these haciendas and huge plantations in America. The first oldest road was the El Camino Real, and that was called the Royal Highway. That's what it means in Spanish. El Camino Real means the Royal Highway, and it was the oldest road in the United States from Santa Fe to Chihuahua, Mexico. So that was that road, where the road went long distance. That was the first, oldest, and longest road in America at that time. Santa Fe, which is now in New Mexico, of course, was founded in 1610. 1610, that's before the Pilgrims, isn't it? It was founded in 1610, the Spanish city of Santa Fe, and it became the capital of all of Spain's settlements there in America. Santa Fe. Remember, Santa Fe was the capital of the new Spain in America. San Diego, it's in pictures now. I have to move this down so you can see the pictures here. So San Diego was the first settlement in California, and then the Spanish settlements of Monterey, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, San Jose, and Los Angeles. So you can see some of these Pueblos settlements there. A lot of, if you tour California missions, you'll see a lot of the old missions. And they were even, we're talking about 1600s, so long time. And they were all, because they were claimed by Spain, and they were all with the Roman Catholic, priests that had come. Pedros. Okay, the Spanish legacy in America. So Catholicism dominated in the Latin American countries. The religion, main religion, had turned to being Catholic. There were many Catholic missions and forts. Also, the Spanish brought in horses and mules, cattle and sheep. So before that time, there weren't any horses or mules or cattle and sheep. So now we know that the cattle industry and sheep and horses would flourish because of Spain bringing them in and breeding them in America. Also, the Spanish introduced cereals, oranges, lemons, and olives, which we know California with olive groves and all the oranges, and Florida and California and lemons all came from Spain. And of course, the Spanish architecture, as you can see with the buildings here. So you can see all these buildings. There we go. The Spanish language. they spoke Spanish in these areas. Can you think of California? They're spoken Spanish, and Texas, that area, all the way from Mexico. That's why the Spanish language is very prominent in these, in Florida and California and Mexico, New Mexico, all there because the Spanish heritage. Okay, let's talk about the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. The reason we have to talk about this is because Spain was the mightiest country in the world. Well, what happened? Spain is not the mightiest country anymore, is it? Well, it was because what happened in 1588. Spain, being the most powerful and wealthiest nation in the 16th century, under King Philip II. There's a picture of him there, if you can see him. There we go, King Philip there. The Spanish Empire in the New World, South America, was controlled by Spain, except for Brazil, because remember Brazil was controlled by Portugal. And Central America, Spanish controlled Central America, Florida, California, and the southwestern United States. That's a lot of area, and Spain controlled it all. Well, the Spanish King Philip II had aspirations to control the whole New World. And in fact, I think he wanted to control the whole world, but he had a problem, and his problem was England. And he was at odds with England, religiously and economically. You see, England had become Protestant during the Reformation. They had drawn away from the Catholic Church. And Philip, being a diehard, he was a diehard Roman Catholic. And so that's one thing. The other thing was the new queen, and the new queen was Queen Elizabeth I. And first he wanted to marry her and put England and Spain, make them one together in a country, so that he could control England and make them all Catholics. And most of them now were Protestants. Most of them did not believe in the Catholic Church. And so Spain, at this time depended on the shipments of gold and silver from the New World. They wanted all of what England had. And so they were odds with England. Let's go on here a little bit. So Philip of Spain and Elizabeth of England. So Queen Elizabeth threatened the flow of Spain's wealth by encouraging pirates. But the pirates weren't called pirates, they were called sea dogs. And her sea dogs, she would sneak in this area and prey upon the Spanish ships. Basically, Elizabeth, she did not want to have anything to do with Philip, and Philip controlling her and taking over her because she was a woman, woman queen too, a single woman queen, and that's what his eye was on. Not only marriage, he could care less about that, but that he wanted to control England. So she had these sea dogs, and they were these English pirates, so to say, and they, like Sir John Hawkins. Sir means that they were a knight. So Sir John Hawkins smuggled English goods into the Spanish colonies, and he started dealing with England coming into these different colonies now. Sir Francis Drake, which we know attacked the Spanish ships that were bound to Spain from the New World, and he took gold and silver from Spain. As remember, Spain was bringing in gold and silver from the new land, and he would attack the big Spanish ships and bring forth the gold and silver to England. Let's see. Philip wanted, of course, to control England and its throne, first by marriage to Elizabeth, but then he said he's going to take Elizabeth out and put in Mary, Queen of Scotland, on the throne, because she, being Elizabeth's cousin, he could control. Not only that, Mary, Queen of Scots, was a diehard Roman Catholic. So he thought, sure, I can marry her cousin, and then I could take over England. So England also interfered with Spain's control of the Netherlands. So he wanted to take over the Netherlands too. And so, of course, the Netherlands were not. They were reformers. The Netherlands were Protestants. They were. They believed in. They believed in to come as a personal relationship with Jesus by faith. And the Netherlands would did not want to be controlled by the Catholic Church. So Philip was a counter-reformer and wanted to crush the Protestant revival altogether by controlling England and the Netherlands and Scotland. He had an invincible Spanish armada of ships. King Philip went to send 130 ships with 30,000 men to invade England and to take England over. Okay, now he says, I'm going to go in and I'm going to conquer England. He was going to sail up the English Channel, pick up troops, and then conquer the Netherlands first, and then go on taking those Dutch people from the Netherlands, taking them to be part of his ships, part of his army, going on to England. If successful, there would be no English colonies in America. In fact, there would be no United States of America. So this is pretty important. If this would have happened, if he would have conquered England, we would be speaking Spanish and we'd be under the Catholic control of the Roman Church. Not only that, we would be under the throes of King Philip and the King of Spain. So Philip, of course, wanted to overthrow Queen Elizabeth and restore the Pope to England. However, God, I have to say, definitely God intervened. Even Philip said that God intervened. As this great Spanish armada came to invade England, what would happen? The sinking of the great Spanish armada. In 1588, a miracle indeed happened. The armada never made it to the Netherlands. The English fleet was much smaller, but very maneuverable, and they had great and brave captains. So the English attacked these galleons, started attacking these ships. And in the meantime, a storm started to arise, and in the midst of the storm started dashing the Spanish ships onto the shores of Scotland and Ireland. So Philip wrote, he said, I sent my ships to fight against men, not against the winds and waves of God. So basically the armada was destroyed by a storm, a great storm. On the English medals, they wrote, God blew and they were scattered. England had sunk the great Spanish armada, but indeed God had sunk the great Spanish armada. The decline of Spain. The defeat of the armada was the beginning of Spain's decline. Although Spain continued to hold land for several centuries later, Spain wouldn't dominate the world anymore. And now this little country of Protestant England would lay the groundwork for political and religious freedom in North America.